This is the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom show, The Wake Up Call on WCOM LP, Chapel Hill on Carborough, 103.5 on your FM dial, or live streaming at WCOMFM.org. You can also watch the show on the People's Channel after a week's delay on Thursday night at 10 p.m., Friday morning at 6 a.m., or Tuesday at noon. The show will also be available on our YouTube channel, Wilf Wake Up Call. I'm Mira Schwinzer here with our hosts, Lori Hoyt and Chris Carlson on the camera. Today our special guests are Elizabeth Onan and Daisy Onan.
Thanks, Iris. I just wanted to mention that, of course, this is New Year's Day, so we're starting a whole new year that I hope will, some better things will happen than have been happening in this past year, which has been pretty discouraging. We're so particularly delighted to have Elizabeth and Daisy on today because we made a commitment last year to, we do this show every week, and that at least once in each month we would have somebody with their action and what they're doing connected with the climate crisis, with the environment, what the work that they're doing in their community to make it better and to work towards the kind of environment, toxic-free environment that we're hoping for. So this is part of our commitment, having Elizabeth and Daisy on the show, starting our new year with our commitment with them to, for the climate, to not have a climate crisis, to do what we can to keep our environment, our soil, our air, our water as toxic-free as possible. And so thank you so much for coming on a holiday late afternoon. And so we're going to talk about what you're doing, what you're committed to, Elizabeth and Daisy. So maybe we could start off just telling a little bit about yourself, Elizabeth. We'll start with you.
Well, I'm kind of an aging toxic avenger, environmental activist. I've been working for 30 years or more. I first founded a group called Protect All Children's Environment, which was an organization for people that had been chemically injured or disabled, primarily by pesticides. We found that there was a tremendous need there, and after that, I started working with the Blue Ridge Environmental Defense League for the last 20 years. Daisy and I both serve on their executive board. And the Blue Ridge Environmental Defense League is the umbrella group for our local chapter, which is the Chapel Hill Organization for Clean Energy.
And when you started out 30 years ago, was that here in Chapel Hill, or have you relocated here from somewhere else?
Well, it follows me around, but it was started chartered in Texas.
Ah,
So,
right in the heart of the oil fields and.
well, right, and as part of all that petrochemical industry, the pesticides, which were a real crisis at that time in Texas.
Okay, and then how long ago did you move here to our area?
Well, we've been here in Chapel Hill about a year and a half. We moved to North Carolina in 1996, so we've been here a good while.
Okay, so you're new to our community, so you have jumped in with both feet. That's amazing. And so is it just here that you started your organization, CHOCE, or had you started it somewhere else and carried it here with you?
I've worked with, we both have worked with BREDL, the Blue Ridge Environmental Defense League, for the last 20 years. So we have founded chapters across the state at this point. We're in Linville Caverns, Linville Gorge. And Marion, North Carolina, we started a group to oppose PVC plants, and we were successful in discouraging their location in our community there. In Linville Gorge, we stopped prescribed burns and a shooting range. And so we just kind of dot the state at this point, I guess.
Good for you. So you both work together on all of this as much as you can?
Well, yeah, we're, close family, so it kind of works out that
Mother-daughter
way.
team. Hey, women power. And this, whatever you can do, Elizabeth, is then multiplied by your daughter joining forces. That's lovely. Yeah.
Daisy's been doing picket lines and protests that she was barely tall enough to carry a sign.
So you mentored her and taught her well.
And exposed her to really good people.
Yeah, and that's what I have said before on this show, that one of the best decisions I made as I was heading towards retirement was that I was going to join the Women's International League, because they used to be in the paper a lot all during the Vietnam War. With they would have a vigil every week. I think they had one of the longest ongoing vigils ever in this country. And so I said, well, when I'm retired, I'm going to do that. I should have done it beforehand, but it was one of the best decisions, because I've met the most wonderful people, in sister organizations, allied organizations. The peace and justice people in this community are, the best people you can meet. It's wonderful.
I agree.
Yeah. So you started, you were with the Blue Ridge environmental group, but you started CHOCE here, and that stands for the Chapel Hill Organization for Clean Energy.
Correct.
And it's right down the street from where I live. I live on Merritt Mill Road.
Oh.
Yeah, right down on that apartments, this First Baptist. So, so we're right in the line of fire with the air coming towards us. So what made you settle on that? Do you live close by to where the coal is?
Not too far. Daisy's a student at UNC in biomedical engineering, and we came here when she got her scholarship here. And I guess we noticed right away that we were having some respiratory problems, repeated things, and I started looking into it, and it seemed that they had a new permit that they were wanting, and there were public comments solicited, and somebody contacted me and asked me if I would submit comments. Well, about the same time I had a meeting with the mayor about something, and I brought it up and I spoke to her about it, and she said, well, we meet on a weekly basis with the environmental engineer from the university, and he didn't tell us they were looking at a new permit. We thought they were going to get off of coal. They told us no more coal in 2020.
That was what we all
That
thought.
was the promise. Well, in researching, it looked like initially when they made that promise of getting off coal in 2020, they were envisioning pellets. Well, pellets turned out to be so disastrous that I guess they abandoned that, because not only does it produce more pollution than coal, but it also just decimates our forests.
So they're talking about the pellets, wood pellets, yes, it's a huge problem with our beautiful forests, right when we're facing
climate crisis, and that we're so desperate for trees. So that didn't work out, but now, instead of just, looking at doing the right thing, which is getting into something that's non-combustible, clean, and renewable, they're now talking about going to coal. In fact, they are burning coal to some extent.
Gas.
Well,
Gas.
Oh, I'm sorry.
they're talking about coal,
They're talking about going to gas. I'm
but
sorry,
they
I
are still
misspoke.
burning coal, because you just have to live around here, and those coal trucks come through every day, I believe.
It comes on the train.
I mean, thank you, truck trains.
Those trucks that run along tracks.
Yes, the trains, the trucky trains. They're coming in every day, because sometimes I get where the light changes and you're stuck there for quite a while as all these train cars come barreling through. And do you have any information about how many of them come each?
I can't give you that information. I do know that, again, it's environmentally devastating
Sure.
because they're just wrecking the environment where they get the coal.
Yeah.
And
It's where they get the coal, where they're now reduced to blowing up mountaintops
yeah,
and then transporting it and then getting it here. So each step of the way it's polluting. And but when you moved here, you were recognizing that you were having some respiratory issues. So that
we came here with disabilities and difficult health problems, but as I often tell people, we may be vulnerable, but we're not disposable. That doesn't mean you can continue poisoning us.
good for you. Yeah, and you may be more vulnerable, but it's affecting everybody. I mean, I live with old people. It's a senior apartments, 40 of them, and so there's about probably 100 people living in this apartment just down the street from where they're burning coal, and we're a vulnerable population also.
Well, it is rather shocking to have a combustion factory of that level in a population center, and also that close to the university where we have, athletes that are being asked to perform at the highest level, as well as just the students that are being exposed to it.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure some of the students, you are not the only one. There's people going to come here who have some asthma issues and other issues. And here's the whole medical facility where talk about vulnerable people. They're building their medical facility like it's like a cancer spreading all over town. I mean, so they're so I don't know how they justify that at all. But now with this state, I can understand this state is not doing very much in the way of regulation. But I think if there was a place with good regulation, you would not allow, you're right on a university campus in a populated area and practically next to a hospital.
Well, and there's an awful lot of, I think, propaganda that surrounds this, where they just have all kinds of misinformation for the public. Public's not even aware of it. They bought that they were going to be off coal in 2020, and most people think we're not doing that anymore.
They do. They
Yeah.
do.
I've been on campus with hundreds of kids around me, and they just don't even know that there's a coal plant right in the middle of their campus. So I think one of the major goals, I guess, for Chapel Hill Organization for Clean Energy is to inform the public of what's going on, and hope that the same enthusiastic students that pulled down Silent Sam will be able to pull down that coal tower.
Here. That sounds like you're doing more planning than the university is doing about, now they're saying 2050, and I thought, how can they go from saying we could do it to 2020? It's only recently that they've backed off from that, relatively recently. And it turns out that they had a very poor plan that was not thought through or looked into with wood pallets, and no backup plan. And then all of a sudden they're pulling the rug. Here you go to the mayor, and the mayor had no idea that they were
Had not been informed at all.
Wow.
And yet, the Chapel Hill, the town of Chapel Hill wrote a letter asking the department to have public comments, to extend public comments. Our organization did, Brattle did, number of organizations, and we still have not had public hearings or an extension for public comments on this.
wow.
That, it just smacks of a totalitarian government that doesn't care what the public's needs are. I think there was a news program this morning that they were talking about there was over $55 billion spent each year on asthma-related environmental health problems.
Say that again?
$55 billion a year
In the
on
country?
asthma-related health problems.
Yeah.
And over 1,000, something like 1,300 people a year dying from asthma from coal plants alone. And I had a dear friend, Jeffrey Stanford, Dr. Stanford, and in speaking of other environmental issues, but he referred to it as premeditated random homicide. We know our decisions are killing people, we just don't know exactly who they're gonna kill. And it's a crisis, and it's a crime against humanity, and it should not be allowed to continue.
Well, thank goodness you moved here and helped get this organization with some good friends, some of whom may be in this room, who helped you get this started. Because I think you're right. I think public education is so important. And you know, people, all of us, you get so busy with your own life, your own concerns, that it's hard, and there's so much going on in this country right now. There's so much that can distract you, so much that can take your attention. And so I think what do they say, you have to hear something, I think, is it 7 times or 15 times? That people have to hear things several times before it really starts sinking in. You know, one time doesn't do it. So that's what this program is here for, our little trying to get word out about the issues that people are working on, activists are working on in our community and nearby communities. And it just needs to be said over and over from different avenues. So I'm glad you heard that. What station did you hear that on this morning about?
I think it was MSNBC.
So
Their morning program.
I was just thinking of our local public radio station. It'd be nice if we could get you on, like the Frank Stasio. You know, he has the noontime local show, but it reaches a very wide audience. So I think, because I think you're right, this is so important, and so many of us get busy and are not paying attention, or so many don't even know about it. And
Well, and the university's propaganda machine would have us all believe that there's no alternative. Well, there is, and there has been for decades. 20 years ago, when we first moved to the Asheville area, we went to a public hearing with Duke Energy and explained to them that alternatives such as solar and wind power were viable at that time, even more so now.
even more so now, the prices come way down.
Well, 79%, I think they said, in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And the program this morning on MSNBC was discussing some deep geothermal research that was having some phenomenal success. And UNC has students that are brilliant, and there's no reason they could not participate and help come up with a better solution here. Another aspect of this whole process is the ash from the coal plant and the dump that is under the Chapel Hill Police Station, and the water problems. That site is located so that it is down below the water table, so it is affecting our drinking water.
So that site at the police station, though, is an old site, right? What are they doing with all the ash now? Or am I wrong about that? I thought...
No, it's going to a different location now. They're not continuing to use that, but this...
But I wonder where.
It's a local... I'm sorry, I should have had that information with me. We do know where it is going.
Yeah.
It's a local dump, and we don't know how it's being used. We've asked, and
Wow.
I've filed open records requests with the Department of Environment and have not gotten a response yet. even though it's been several months and I have, I think, 2 days to respond. But,
So it is local, so we'll have to have you on again sometime and
you know,
tell
we don't know whether they're covering it or whether they're using it, spreading it on things on the top where it could blow any place, but you know, here again, this is just another part of the coal process that could easily be eliminated if we were using something safe and clean. You know?
And we talked a little bit before the show. I wonder what, if you're talking about 2050, well, you can't just wait to 2049 and snap your fingers. The planning should be going on right now, and that maybe they could get it done a little sooner, you know? Could they do it in 10 years? And they get these big new buildings have gone up. I see a Mason Farm Road, a couple of big, beautiful buildings. I see right down from the Stone Center. I was so shocked that all of a sudden there's this big with a lot of glass, fancy building just down that little street alongside the Stone Center. And I don't know what these buildings are for, but they're very impressive. And if they were really planning, you would think that there'd be some solar or geothermal heating or air. What are these new buildings energy efficient? What is, you know, we've got to get a good reporter out there and
You know, find out how efficient they are. We know they're not
Yeah.
solar and there's no wind power, it's not geothermal. And, I mean, the next thing they're going to probably come up with after gas is nuclear. And that has a waste problem that can't be addressed either, you know.
it can't be addressed either. And after, I just heard today that after Fukushima, I think Angela Merkel is planning on closing out their nuclear plants. I just heard that today because it's just too dangerous to populations, and that they're going to be working hard on alternative, I think solar and wind, whatever. I didn't hear where they're going, but they are planning on closing. So if other people are closing, it would not make much sense for us to be opening more. And plus, it takes, what, about 10 years when you're building a nuclear plant for it to come online? It's not an overnight
But
thing.
it could be. I mean, there's no reason why, as some have suggested, you couldn't just pull the plug on it and let them pay their electric bill just like I do and everybody else does.
Mhm.
You know, there's actually no reason that they couldn't generate power with, you know, some other way.
Oh,
Immediately.
absolutely.
It's not a matter of money because they
No.
just gave $2.5 million to the Confederate group to reinstate the Silent Sam statue.
And I read a chilling thing in some newspaper. I had one that's written by, it's a African American newspaper a neighbor brought over to me, and then I get the News and Observer. But it was something where in South Carolina, that same organization, the Sons of the Confederacy, are making donations to get politicians in that they want, who will support their values and views. But they were making like small amounts, like 15,000 or 10,000 small. They didn't have a huge budget, but it said that, and then in North Carolina their budget was a little higher, but now they'll have a huge budget that they could swing our elections with $2.5 million. So a lot of politicians can be bought for that. So that's an aspect of it I hadn't thought of until I read that. And they weren't saying that in that article. It was just reporting about how they were making these donations in South Carolina, and in North Carolina their donations were a little bit higher. But that put that in my mind, well, gosh, you know, they're going to have a lot more money to play with and do whatever damage they want to do with it.
Well, and this is, I guess, kind of involves both of these issues, but I kind of grew up with Brettle, and one of the really,
Say again what Brett is, because a lot of people won't know.
that's the Blue Ridge Environmental Defense League.
Yes, Blue
And-
Ridge, keep that in mind, folks, that's our beautiful Blue Ridge.
And one of the wonderful things they do is that they really kind of go into local areas throughout the state and other states now too, and help the communities become empowered. And I think that, you know, I've been here long enough now to see that UNC really is the students and the community. And I think that, you know, it's not that much of a step to say we want to participate and we want to shape how these decisions are made. And it is hard because everybody's busy and, you know, has a lot to do, but I don't think it really takes that much if we all just have a little bit of input. And I think it really can direct things in the direction that we all want to see things go into, so that UNC can be the best that it can be, whether we're talking about energy or politics or other social movements.
Yeah. I mean, the whole reason for a university is educating people, young and older. It's education. And if they are not taken into consideration, it's not keeping these bureaucrats going. I mean, that's not the basic reason, but I think that they sometimes think that it is. That you know, the whole reason is for them to keep their position going and their power going. But I think you're right that the more the students unite, and I think with the climate thing, is my hope is that with the inspiration of young people like Greta Thunberg, but many other young people, you know, who have not attained the name recognition that she has, but that I think that, and now the students, you know, during the Vietnam War, the students were a powerful voice, and my hope is not that we get to that level of anger, but that the students can get together and things can start changing fast enough that it can be a cooperative working alliance.
Yeah.
You know, students, faculty, and the administration. But the administration, that's not the reason for the university, is this administration. And so what,
Let's do a station break.
oh, yeah, we have a station break now. Hold on.
This is Wolf's Wake Up Call on WCOM LP, Chapel Hill and Carver, 103.5 FM. You can stream us live at WCOMFM.org.
I just want to mention to stay tuned. We'll be having a lot of information about activities around Martin Luther King's birthday that is coming up. And I also want to mention that the Rogers Road community, right at the time, either the 20th or the 21st, is going to have a special exhibit called Sankofa, and it's a mobile museum on African American history and culture. And we're going to have more about it, and I just want to start people to be, I don't know what, and I think it's an African name or a Nigerian name, Sankofa, Sankofa. And I just had one little handout about it, and it didn't say what the translation of the name was. But Minister Campbell from that community is very excited about it. So I want you all to start be thinking around that time that there's going to be not only our usual celebrations of Martin Luther King's legacy, but also to get on your calendar about getting over to Rogers Road to see this mobile moving exhibit, which is pretty exciting. So back to our guests, Elizabeth and Daisy, who have come to us from the Blue Ridge Environmental Organization. Am I saying that?
The Ridge Environmental Defense League.
Defense League, Blue Ridge Environment, and we're very lucky to have them here a year and a half, and they're getting this important activist group started with some other people, choke, and we will choke on the fumes if we don't listen to what they're trying to educate us on. Chapel Hill Organization for Clean Energy, and that's one of the most important things that we can think about, being able to breathe. And right now we have a toxic university, unfortunately. In many ways, it's going backwards in many ways, and this is one of the really important ways that's affecting all of us. And I'm so glad that you're all doing the work you are, and I think you're getting some support from some young people. I've seen some young people out on the street a few times.
Yeah, I think things are growing. We're working with other groups. We're showing up with other groups when they have meetings and generally trying to get the word out.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah, it's very strange to think of it, but UNC has a very important toxicology department, and yet they're doing nothing to help with either a health survey or testing around this ash dump that they've created underneath the police station in Chapel Hill, or testing to see how seriously the local residents are affected. In fact, they do not treat people within the toxicology department. And in fact, I wonder how effective they are, because there's not an MD toxicologist in the city or surrounding counties that I've located that will see people or see patients. You know, they do research, but I guess you have to be a rat to get in. I don't know.
We shouldn't laugh, but
Right.
but you know,
Yeah.
you may be, unfortunately, you may be right. So how do other toxicology departments in other universities do they that would be, it would seem to me an important part of their research would be doing surveys like that.
Well, in fact, the town of Chapel Hill was looking for quite a long time to find a toxicologist to advise them about how serious, the ash plant, ash dump was over underneath the police station, and how much it affected surrounding citizens from getting in our water supplies and air and what have you, various forms of exposure. But no one from the university has
So they couldn't get
even
anybody.
admitted that they created this stuff, because at the time it was created, there were no laws that required you to manifest, what you did with your waste, where you took it. No, as they say now, cradle to grave documentation about where this all went.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned water in connected with this ash dump at the police station, because it's right adjacent to the Bowling Creek.
Which
And,
eventually does go into a water supply, but it's also built so that it extends down below the water table. So there's a constant feed source of this, coal ash going into our drinking water in the water table.
So you're saying they're still adding to it when you say?
No, they're not adding to that particular site, but there is a great deal that's
Oh, but
stored
there's building
there.
around it and,
Well, the dump itself extends down below the water table,
Oh,
so
the
that
dump.
what is existing there has not been removed. There's some talk that they have capped some of it and that they may, excavate, but nothing seriously has gone on there yet.
So, yeah, you read certain things and then time goes on. I had thought when it first was being talked about, I thought it was being taken care of, but what you're saying is not being taken care of at all. And
I think they lack the will to. The
Yeah,
same people
they could.
that have allowed this to continue for decades are the very same people that removed the ban on fracking. I mean, and have steadily deregulated We had another situation where we had hexavalent chromium from another ash dump, and instead of warning the people not to drink the water, they raised the level 7-fold on the amount of cancer that was acceptable under these circumstances. So,
So you
they
just
didn't
had-
do anything to protect people or to remove the threat or the risk or lessen the risk. They just raised the amount of cancer we could have.
So you just raise the bar and say, this is really okay. Yeah, so we're all at risk from many different directions these days. But this is something, if you live in Chapel Hill and Carborough, this is something local and right here and right under our nose. There's so much that we may feel we have no power over, or it's far away, you know, what's happening with fires in California and there's floods over here. But this is our problem right here. And it's something that is doable. You know, that I think, Daisy, you're right. If we can get enough information out and especially get a lot of university students realizing that there is this coal burning, it's not just coal storage, coal burning plant right down the street from where they are, and wonder why maybe they're starting their respiratory problems for the first time. You know, I would think that this would be a good organizing tool if we can get the information to the right people.
And I think it's an opportunity too, if we can, get together and figure out a better way to create basically, I think steam is mainly what the boiler is used for at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It could be something that would be used, I don't know, I mean, potentially it could replace nuclear. That's basically what nuclear is heating water and running it through a turbine that creates energy.
Mm-hmm. So that would be good to get somebody to start coming up with plans, like what they could do, so that could be presented too, you know, all the different talent that's at that university and knowledge, you know, to be able to be tapped into, whether it's city planning or the toxicology or the medical personnel, or there's so much going on there. That it could be a rich resource if enough momentum or enough information could be generated, you know, get people really thinking about it. So has the Tar Heel ever run an article about this for y'all?
I think they've done 2 or 3 now about this issue.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. We just recently were in a Christmas parade here in the Carborough, Chapel Hill Christmas parade, and had a smokestack and signs, and I think people were somewhat enlightened by that. There was quite a bit of spontaneous applause and thumbs up and whistling, and you know, I think we had quite a bit of enthusiastic support.
Yeah, that sounds like a very good visual. Did you have handouts like as you went along? Did you have like information sheets?
We had some information sheets, and we had
Good for you.
candy that was shaped like coal that we passed out.
Maybe
we
we
had
could get a shot. I
Can
think
you
you
hold
brought
it
some.
Cause
Maybe
the camera.
hold it up, and Chris will take a shot of this delicious coal candy.
Hold it up higher. It does, yeah, the camera. Yeah, hold it up really. Oh, there you go. Oh, perfect.
And we had stockings for the board members of UNC that were full of coal too.
Oh. Okay, so you're doing a lot. You're doing a lot. So if anybody who's listening, and we'll do this again at the end, how would they get in touch with you if they're saying, you know, I'm busy but I could do a little bit, or
Sure. We have a Facebook page for
Okay.
the Chapel Hill Organization for Clean Energy, and they can contact me.
So you go to CHOCE on the Facebook page
Correct,
and just go CHOCE.
right. And if they,
That'll do it on Facebook.
I think they will have to go into Chapel Hill Organization for Clean Energy.
Oh, okay. organizations for clean energy, and then you would pop up as one of them.
When the meetings are.
And
There are lots of articles and information and some background information there.
is there a number or an email where people could get in touch with you or members of the,
Right, our phone number is 828-655-5505.
828-655-0376, and that's your personal phone number? That's for Elizabeth and Daisy, mother-daughter, 828-655-0376. Okay,
And do you want an email address?
yeah, that'd
Okay.
be,
It's kind of long. It's
okay,
PACE, P-A-C-E,
P-A-C-E,
at McDowell, and that's M-C-D-O-W-E-L-L,
at McDowell, M-C-D-O-W,
E-L-L,
E-L-L,
Main, as in Main Street, M-A-I-N, N-C, as in North Carolina, U-S. It's a nonprofit.
okay,
And that's pace at mcdowell.maine.nc.us.
And
U-S,
US, like United States.
okay.
And the meetings, I think, are usually posted on the Facebook site, correct?
Correct. And we're meeting over at the Chapel Hill Library
Meetings at the library, and how often, once a month?
once a month. And it'll be posted at the library. And we'll post it on our website too, on our Facebook page.
On the Facebook, okay.
6:30 to 8 at night.
What?
6:30 to 8 at night.
It starts at 8 o'clock.
6:30 to 8 o'clock.
6:30 to 8.
Yeah.
And is it a
Is that the-
particular
Is that the fourth Tuesday or?
It's on Tuesdays.
Tuesdays?
Third Tuesday of the month, I think, but I need to check that.
Okay, Tuesdays, third Tuesday. Okay, and we could, if there's any correction, we could do it next week here.
That would be good.
Yeah. Okay, so meet at the Chapel Large is a good place to meet. The third Tuesday of the month, if that's not right, we'll correct it next week, 6:30 to 8 o'clock. And I think that I know with Rogers Road, when they were just struggling on their own, it's when they got other organizations involved with them that it took off. You know, so I think the more you can build coalitions with allied
Yeah, we just,
groups.
recently,
You're so new, yeah.
well, for the parade the float we made for the parade, the Chapel Hill, no, it's not Chapel Hill, it's the Scrap Exchange
Oh,
over
yeah.
in Durham, I believe.
Helped you out?
Yeah, they made a donation and helped us with our decorations and materials.
That's wonderful. Because I was just thinking when you were describing it with this smokestack and all this, I thought, boy, somebody's really talented with you know, all that thing, those things are not that easy.
No, it takes a little time.
And creativity, more than just time, yeah. So I think you're doing so good to be so new. It's just really impressive.
I think, whereas CHOCE is fairly new, I've been at it for 30 years.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I've seen in almost every instance is not that people don't care or they're apathetic, or they're ignorant. A lot of it is they don't know what's happening. But the big thing that's hard to overcome is this thought that everybody has, that they can trust their government, they can trust the people in charge, and I don't have to think about it, it's being taken care of. What we're finding out, especially in this age of deregulation, and that we're being lied to, that the people that are supposed to be regulating are not doing it, and that we have to be prepared to unite and not only fight for our right to to breathe clean air and drink clean water or whatever, but be prepared to fight for our neighbors as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right, and I think that it's part trusting too much in the powers that be, but also it's part, let George do it, somebody's taking care of it, I got enough things to take care of, and if I think somebody else is taking care of it, I got this other more immediate thing, what am I gonna have for supper, or, or my kid needs this, or whatever. But I think it's a little bit of many things, but I think if we can get enough word out where people are realizing that this is jeopardizing them right here in their community, right now, then I think that could be powerful. And unfortunately, we don't have a really good local newspaper anymore. I mean, I still get the News and Observer, but it's mostly focused on Raleigh.
Yeah.
And I think the Daily Tar Heel has really, become our de facto local paper, and you have to go look for that. And if you're not a student, it's not that easy to find.
I wish I had better information for you, but I do believe there's a nonprofit news, at least it's online news,
Yeah,
that started recently.
Something. I get something, and I forget what it is, but it comes out once a month, and I'm glad to get it. But it's just tells a few basic things that are happening. It would not go into like what protests or anything. It's more what the town is putting out, or what what's happening in Chapel Hill. More the official record of this is happening or this meeting is happening. But it's nothing like a newspaper would be. And I think there is another thing, Chapel Borough, that people go online. How is that? Do you ever get that, yours? Is it any good?
Well, it does have local news. It's put out by the same folks that do WCHL.
Okay. So there is radio, folks. There's this WCHL, there's WCOM, because this isn't the only talk show. There's a wonderful environmental program on one of the mornings. I forget what the guys are called, but they have really very good environmental information. And every once in a while, when I'm in the kitchen, I'm putting the radio on, and I've caught them. And I've heard somebody else say how they have to but it's nationwide. They're not saying so much what's happening here, but it's like all the environmental news of how this is working and that's working, but they're really good. But we need to know, we need more information, and in this age of information, it's weird to be able to say. But there's 24-hour news, but in terms of local,
It's just not a whole lot out there.
there is not. So anyhow, folks, pay attention to this, and if you're living in Chapel and Carborough, tell other people. It'd be nice if we could get more. So when you have these protests, that was every Friday morning, is that still going on now?
I think it'll resume this month.
They'll resume this month, had a break for the holidays.
Right.
Okay, so that is one thing that's been very definite, so that'll be starting at least by the end of the month, I guess?
Yes, and hopefully we'll have more participation by students, and
As they come.
it will grow as things go along.
The students will be coming back. When does classes start again, Daisy?
January 9th.
Oh, coming up pretty quick. So about the middle of the month, on Friday mornings, it was what, about 8 o'clock?
8 to 10 o'clock.
8 to 10 o'clock. And it's right on Cameron Avenue,
Right in front of the coal plant.
right in front of the coal plant, which is right there, right over the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
You can't miss it.
Nope.
And I guess people have to walk over there from a parking lot, or I guess they could take a bus.
That is, kind of an issue because
Yeah.
the access is a little difficult, but
Yeah.
if anybody wants to get in touch, we could maybe do carpooling
Yeah.
or try to figure out something like that.
Yeah, because it's right down the street from me, but my legs are not that great. And in the summer it was too hot, but I was just thinking, gosh, it's cooler now. That's not an excuse. This is the weather to protest in.
Well, give us a call, we'll come pick you up, drop you off right there where you need to be.
Okay, got your number now, huh?
You do?
You can my number. Oh my gosh. So, okay, we've got a little bit more time. We've got 5 more minutes. Is there any aspect of what you're doing that we haven't brought up, or I haven't thought of, or you haven't thought of? Or shall we just?
I think so, other than the just kind of intrinsic health effects that any kind of combustion has, whether you're doing pellets, whether you're doing coal, or whether you're doing gas. And in addition to that, and the direct health effect from the actual use, here at this plant is the effect of the extraction. And I think that, it's become pretty well known what a problem that the fracking is, and certainly the mountaintop removal for the coal, and also the deforestation for the pellets. So it really is kind of a double whammy that is bad, both, here where we're breathing it, but also where they're actually extracting these energy sources.
I'm glad you brought that back up, because we maybe didn't emphasize that enough each step of the way. But where they're extracting the coal, that's devastating to communities there, especially the way they do it now, where they're, run out of the easy coal to get at, and it's a literal thing. They blow up mountaintops. I've seen documentaries showing it's horrible. It's horrible. It's war on Mother Earth, and then the transportation. And Chris, do you have?
Well, there's one thing is that the coal plant also creates coal ash, and that's one of the things that you're seeing with those trains going out. They are being filled with the coal ash from the plant here, and they're being taken to Virginia.
Oh, that's where so that's what I didn't
Yeah.
see the ash going out. I keep seeing the coal coming in, but they don't want to leave empty. It's efficient.
They have to do something with the coal
They have
ash.
So they're
So,
yes,
yeah.
and how
And what they're doing with the coal ash, they think, is putting it on playgrounds, reinforcing cement with playgrounds and stuff like that, using it for.
So what we need is some more investigative reporting on this, and also it'd be nice to get, if somebody could investigate what the university's plans are. And also with these new buildings that look like very expensive buildings going up, how energy efficient, what planning went into already with the construction that's going on. That's what really disturbs me. What's happened in the past is one thing, but here we are now, and what are they doing? If they're really, if they're serious.
And what's the state doing? We have a governor with the clean energy program. How's he helping us?
Like, that's another good point, exactly.
I mean, these are not vitamins they're putting in the air, and we have a crisis now. We can't afford to wait even another decade, much less until 2050.
No. So so you brought up so many important points. I mean, there's just so many issues involved, and so much of it we really don't have good information or good answers in terms of the university plans, and somebody's got to hold their feet to the fire. And it sounds like Chapel Hill doesn't feel it has very much power with the university. It looks like they're being treated shabbily to be making a major decision to not end the coal and not even letting the mayor know.
Well, and the mayor's response is always that they don't regulate. One of the major problems is Duke Energy will not buy back the surplus power that is made at the coal plant. And if they would do that, then apparently it would be more efficient.
Now say that again, I missed that.
Well, I'm not quite sure that I really understand their thinking on
Okay.
it, but apparently they could. And I imagine this would be true no matter how they were generating power. You know, they could do it with solar power or something else, but Duke Energy is not being required to buy back surplus energy that's made, that's just being wasted.
Yeah, and I thought that was mostly with solar, but
In any instance,
yeah,
apparently.
yeah. So
So-
this, so we've got a lot of information. I appreciate you coming, but it's also raising a lot of questions. And so you try to get some of the answers, we'll try to get some of the answers and have you on again some other times, some months from now, where we could kind of go back and take a look at it and see how much more information we can get. 'Cause this is such a critical issue, and it's right here, folks, right here locally, right smack dab in the middle. And I appreciate we had Elizabeth O'Han and her daughter Daisy O'Han, and this is the WILF, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom radio show. And we'll be on next week.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.